Speaker.
The Honourable Nathan Guy.
Thank you. What a disappointing speech that was from Grant Robertson, where he didn't even mention anything to do with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He didn't mention about this government's plan of growing jobs in the region. And what he didn't even mention also was this is a day of celebration. We should be patting the Finance Minister on the back and saying, well done for getting the government's books back into surplus. $414 million back into surplus. A target that was set right back in 2011 has been achieved today. And of course, Grant Robertson couldn't even stand up in the House because he didn't have the dignity to say well done to this side of the House. And what Grant Robertson didn't say is what an awful caucus they had on Tuesday. What an awful caucus. You know, the big debate they had in there upstairs this week was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Andrew Little, missing in action all of last week, left it to Annette King. She was out to lunch. She didn't even know what she was talking about with trade. And then, of course, we have had other contributions from anyone with an economic bone in the Labour caucus knows that the Trans-Pacific Partnership is huge for the New Zealand economy. And I'm looking at David Parker. He is there nodding. He knows how important the Trans-Pacific Partnership is for the New Zealand government. And then if you think about the person that sits next to him, David Shearer. I was down here a few weeks ago at the last few days of the last session where we were debating the Korean FTA. And David Shearer gave an amazing speech in support of the Korean FTA. It was a fantastic speech. It was like it was delivered from someone on this side of the House. So you know why their caucus this week was so fascinating, because anyone with an economic bone in their caucus, and I admit there aren't too many of them, David Parker, David Shearer, Phil Goff, even a guy that we don't know much about, Penny Hanare, who's actually an Auckland-based MP. He said that Labour is all about free trade. So there you have, on that side of the House, some of their members are out there supporting free trade, but they can't decide whether to support the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So they are out there confusing the public, saying, oh, well, we don't think this is good enough. We should have got a better deal on dairy. Oh, well, they should have done more here. I'll tell you what, here's my prediction this afternoon. Labour will vote for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Damien O'Connor and Stewie Nash, David Parker, David Shearer and Phil Goff will push this through because they know it's good for regional New Zealand. They know it's good for jobs. They know ultimately it's good for the New Zealand economy. We are talking about 800 million people, potential consumers of New Zealand products. We are talking about over a third of the world economy. We are talking about New Zealand pushing hard for 25 years to get free trade access into the US and Japan. Finally achieved. The US, #1 economy. Japan, the 3rd biggest. Mexico, the 11th. We had to be there. I'm delighted that Tim Grosser has managed to achieve what he has done, and his officials. I think it's right that he acknowledges officials across the whole of government who have been working really hard for a number of years to get this important free trade agreement where it is today. We're talking about tariff savings of around $260 million, the potential to earn $2.7 billion by 2030. What I also want to talk about is more good news for our primary sector. When you look at what's been happening in beef and lamb, they've just released their financial report for the last 12 months. Beef, for the first time in 20 years, beef exports higher than lamb and mutton. They've broken through 3 billion mark, about 3.2, lamb and mutton about 3 billion. Fantastic. So actually farmers up and down the country are celebrating the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We never got what we wanted completely on dairy, but it's hugely beneficial for our meat exporters, for our farmers, for our growers, for our horticulture growers, and also for our viticulture guys that are exporting wine. So very good week for the government, a terrible disaster week for the Labor Party. Here he is.